So let me ask a question.
All right.
And look, we're all smart people. We've been
Most
doing
of us.
this for most of us. I can tell you the people like that built, man, they're the smartest of the smartest. Some of us 20 years in this space, decades of experience,
Right.
really, really technically smart, very smart. Why is a conference like this important
Mm-hmm.
for people in leadership roles?
Mm-hmm. You want me to go with that?
Yeah,
That was so well posed. You look very thoughtful too in your face. You're
I
serious.
shaved. I got rid of
You got rid of
the
the
beach
Scooby
beard.
Doo thing that was happening. Yeah. So the answer is we are not static creatures. We are people that are continually evolving. And this idea that when you're grown up, things you stop growing is false, or if it's true, it's unhealthy, right? So what we find from the leadership perspective is that we're living in a so-called VUCA world, V.U.C.A. This is something that was teased out in the late 80s and was picked up by the War College. And it's really, how do you live in a world that's volatile, that's uncertain, that's complex, and that's ambiguous? And the idea is in adult development that adults evolve in predictable ways. Okay, we all tend to start as opportunists, right? We look for wins wherever we can find them. Then we, over time, get a little smarter and we look to belong and to fit in. Then we get to the point where we're experts and we have chops, right? We have substantive skills. We are experts in Revit. And for a lot of us, we build a whole career around that. And that's fine. But there are higher levels of adult development that we can aspire to and that we should aspire to, especially in this VUCA world, okay?
Mm.
So you sort of move from this expert phase into a place where you're reframing complex problems in novel ways, right? You're not just stuck in, to a hammer, everything looks like a nail kind of way of thinking of the world. And then we're into, ideally, into sort of a transformative phase where we're really redesigning organizations and we're updating ourselves, we're updating our relationships, and the goal is to get to the top tier. It's traditionally thought of as a 7-tier process of getting to what they call the alchemical, right? Which is where you're integrating sort of material, spiritual, societal, and it's very transformative. So people call that vertical development, moving from the take wins where you can find them to living in a VUCA world in a way where you can live with a lot of ambiguity and uncertainty and complexity, and you can see it and thrive in it and put together problems and answers in a new way. So how do you do that? I like the analogy that a lot of people use, like a difference between vertical and horizontal development. Horizontal development is where your glass is getting filled up by knowledge, right? People are teaching you stuff, you're incorporating those tools into your work, and it's about what you think. It's adding additional knowledge and skills, and it's about what you think. Vertical development, which is this ladder of 7 stages that I talked about, is reached through life experience and through the deep work that we're talking about in our little unconference. And it's about how you think. And so in vertical development, you're not filling up the glass with more knowledge, you're expanding the glass itself in all directions, right? You're growing your mind so that you're growing your capability to see the world in all of its complexity and ambiguity, and not drown in it, but thrive in it. So yeah, go.
Give me a practical thing you could do, or that you do, or someone can do, just to help them be present and focus.
Right.
Like, what's one thing someone could do?
So one thing you could do is take a few beats before you answer. Give your brain a few milliseconds to actually organize itself.
Yeah.
Because usually we have something thoughtful to say, but we often respond too quickly. So, okay, I'm going to take a few beats, think about Phil's great question. And I might mirror and say, all right, so what you're asking me, Phil, is to reflect back to you on how I might be more present and be more aware so that I can manage in a VUCA world and work my way up this chain of thinking, right? So there's lots of ways that you can answer that. I think it starts like we were talking about. You got this wonderful email in response to this conference from someone who was very honest and very aware
Oh yeah.
and was doing the deep thinking about where this person was in their life and their career and what they aspired to, and they aspired to something higher. So that's the critical first step. Like, are you aware? Are you open? Are you honest? Are you available? Then what do you do? Okay, so you can do things like I'm just making sure my power cord is good. You do things like you seek new experiences where you're out of your comfort zone. You're being challenged. You seek time to reflect, which is what we're looking at in this context. To sit with your thoughts and see where you are and where you want to be, and see what's the gap between those two places. I think a really important one too, and one that I think that you personally and your team and your larger network is really good at, which is building open networks. And that's probably something that resonates with you as a technical guy. I mean, over time, we tend to get more and more cloistered in our thinking, and we tend to go to the same circle, small circle of advisors. And that's a closed network. And if you can build an open network where you're bumping into people who think differently than you, who see the world differently than you, that is a real trigger to the kind of growth that we're talking about. Is that a good answer?
Yeah. If it's the right, if it's a true one, yeah. If it's an
Well,
honest one.
it's honest. We'll see how true it is. But you test these things all the time, right? And it's different for every person.
All right.
The idea of the 7 stages of adult development is pretty established leadership theory. How you get there, there's going to be different triggers for everybody.
Look, I can tell you that it seems like everything wants my attention.
Yeah.
It's too noisy.
Mm-hmm.
Helicopter's flying over. He's noisy.
They're spying on you, bro.
Yeah. Um, the hardest thing to do is not pick up the cell phone first thing in the morning. So I've been getting up earlier and earlier, and I try to make it a goal that when I wake up, I don't touch the cell phone for at least an hour. I have a coffee, I sit quietly, I try to listen to and it's like, well, how do you do that? When you get up, you should check your phone right away. Well, then get up earlier. So set the alarm for 5 or 5:30 and just try to watch the day start, listen to the day start, as opposed to just get like, I don't want to say triggered, but the thing is, just have that sense of urgency that, oh my gosh, there's things happening that I don't like. There's things that are happening that I need to pay attention to. There's all of this stuff that I need to do. And really, I kind of think that we have the ability to empathize beyond our influence. And it creates, at least for me, this enormous feeling of conflict that I should be doing more or more effective, or it's really, in some cases, I don't know, what the balance is, that when do you just detach from that and really try to be I think a more honest influence within the circle that I'm in, as opposed to thinking that I can, do something about that thing on the other side of the world that makes me feel obligated to do something because it's in my living room on a box with a screen telling me that it's happening right now. But what
Right.
really can you do, just to be
Yeah.
honest? So trying to limit, and I'm not saying walk away from it and don't feel a sense of obligation, but at least balance the sense of obligation with your ability ability to actually influence that, right? Because my neighbors have problems, but it's sometimes easier to deal with the thing on the other side of the world and feel like I've done the right thing than it is just to go and help a neighbor because they're like right
Right.
next door and it's messy.
Well, there's so much there in what you just said. And I guess, you know, the coach in me would ask you now a whole series of questions. And you know,
Way to beat.
we don't have the time today to
This
do
isn't
that.
going into the video.
But I guess, you know, you've what you just did was teed up the challenges that we all face, right? How do we live a life that's in balance? How do we serve others? How do we grow ourselves? How do we decide what's most important in our life? How do we prioritize? How do we block out distractions? You know, what are we in service of? Right? That's like such a fundamental question for me. Like, in service of what? Ask yourself that question. Like, in service of what? When you're stuck, you
Yeah, you
know?
know, for me, I guess the thing is there's this sense of obligation because the TV is on, I must listen to it.
Yeah.
And I guess the thing is we allow technology to not distract us. We allow technology to engage with us in a way that I wouldn't allow a real person to engage. Like if
No.
somebody came into my house and started debating, two people started just debating some political issue in my house, I would be like, you're not welcome here again. That's annoying. Well, the thing is with a TV, it's kind of the same effect that I get when two people are arguing. I don't like to hear people argue. So I've just stopped, for the most part, watching TV, except for a few TV shows that we've spoken about. I read news and I read what's going on. And a lot of times you can sort of skim the headlines just to get a sense of what's going on, because really the details to me, I think it's great information, but it's nothing that I can deeply influence. That's where the sort of, you know, don't touch the internet until you've had a coffee and had a quiet time. And then, you know, like I've deleted Facebook from the cell phone because it's people that I like saying angry things. And I would think, wow, I wouldn't want you to say that to me in the room, but you know, social media allows us to sort of soapbox in a way.
Yeah, the anonymity of it.
Yeah. And so I've gotten off of that. And the other thing now that when you start to get older, you hop onto Facebook. So now that I hop on once in a while, I start seeing the odd thing. Wow, it'd be your 58th birthday today. Rest in peace, buddy. I'm like, oh shit, I know that guy.
Right.
I knew that guy. I don't want to be on Facebook anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah,
you
part
know,
of the conference is just being quiet. I think that's going to be something that is uncommon and hope welcomed. Like just talking to other people, being quiet for a bit.
you know, I think that's essential. I think that's what, you know, we're trying to do here that makes this unusual and a little bit special. And, you know, as I said earlier, it's all of these things. It's a collision, right? It's meeting people that you don't already know. I mean, you're probably gonna know everybody. I will know no one, and it'd be somewhere in between for most people. But that idea of creating more open networks is a very powerful thing. Just a way of you know, shaking yourself out of the day-to-day structure that you've built, the norms, and looking in things and doing things a little bit differently. And if the focus is on a little bit of reflection and rest and separation from the things that make cute noises. I just started thinking of that Monty Python skit of them, the hospital administrators buying the machines that went bing, right? And they're all obsessed with things that go
That's what they're excited about.
Yeah. Right? That's what they care about. So separating yourself from things that go ping for a while, I think is very healthy and increasingly rare in our communities.
What do you say to someone that says this conference, it's not expensive, there's not going to be a lot of people there, it's not really directly related to your job, it sounds indulgent?
So, you know, if you wanted to allow them to get away with that, you could say, well, I mean, yeah, I guess one way you could define it as indulgent, but I think that especially for mature professionals who are living in that expert bucket of adult development, if you want to grow, it starts with looking inward and nurturing yourself. And if you can grow into these broader, bigger stages of adult development, and you can learn to live and thrive in a VUCA world, you're serving everybody around you. You're helping yourself, you're helping your partners, your family, your friends, your business. And that may be sound a little too optimistic for some people, but I really believe that's true.
Yeah, well, maybe it is a little indulgent. It doesn't sound selfish in the way that
Not
you
at all.
just described it.
Not at
Yeah.
all.
All right. Thanks, Randy.
Amen. Pleasure to be with you.